Hey everybody, it's Mr. Smith here, and this is the Unit 1 Consumption, Lesson 3, which is on making a single decision. So that's what we're going to be learning about, making a single decision. So let's go ahead and dive right in with the notes. I just need to put my screen on top so that y'all can see me. All right, and away we go. So we had lesson 1, which is when we identified the fundamental problem in economics. Then we did lesson 2, which is where we identified the fundamental assumptions for economics. See if you can remember. There were 4. Well, first, what's the fundamental problem? One word. It's the reason why economists exist, what we study. Scarcity. Then we talked about in order to view the world through the lens of addressing the problem of scarcity, we have 4 assumptions that we use. Do you remember those 4? See if you can list them out. So they are rational, self-interested, different tastes and preferences, and valuation. This whole unit we are talking about economics and really just navigating life with one specific role in mind, and that is the role of the consumer. Remember, we said to consume something means to take in that resource. It doesn't necessarily mean eating, although that is a type of consumption. It can also be using energy. It can be entertainment. So since Unit 1 is all about consumption and all about the consumer, that role, this next lesson is about how to maximize utility, your happiness, in the role of a consumer. And the first way to do that is through making single decisions. In the next lesson, we're going to look at how you can maximize your utility when you make repeated decisions. But to get started, we're going to focus just on a single decision and how you can maximize your utility within that single decision. So if we go back to the Dollar Street assignment, that's the assignment that you did for lesson 2, you explored a bunch of different countries and you saw how scarcity affects us all, the rich and the poor, but it affects us all differently. We consume different things. We have access to different things, to different job opportunities, to different resources, and some have greater access than others. And so with Dollar Street, you're able to see that on a global scale. The disparities in income and how that leads to different levels of consumption, both in quality and quantity. So from that, you hopefully observed that we do not all get the same amount, that there are disparities in consumption and in access. That is something that you can see with this chart. So go ahead and take a moment just to read through this chart on the world's wealth distribution. So basically, if we took all the money in the world, we put it in a room, then how many people from Canada, how much of that money would they take? What percentage? How many people from Africa, how much money would they take? What percentage? So go ahead and read through this to kind of see how our money is distributed within the world. So, what are some of your reactions to reading this? What are some of the things that stick out to you? I think one of the things that sticks out to me is the fact that just 8% of the world's adult population owns 82% of its wealth. So there's a huge disparity in terms of the amount of economic power, purchasing power that people have. And when you think about our world's population, 7 billion people, for only 8% of that 7 billion people to own not just half, but like 4/5 of our world's wealth is shocking to me, and it makes me think about the implications that has on people's the amount of influence that we have in the world just based on where you're born. So then this next graph shows specifically for the US, how is our wealth distributed based on income. So take a moment to read through this graph, or table, chart rather. All right, so what sticks out to you this time? One thing that sticks out to me is the fact that the poorest 20%, I think this is broken up by percent. So we got the poorest 20, then the next 20, the middle 20, the upper 20, and then the highest 20. So each of these is a different 20%. What sticks out to me is the fact that the poorest 20 and the working poor, that's 40% of our country. 40%, that's almost half. So almost half of the people in our country own not even the red, but just that tiny little sliver right there. That's all they almost half of our country only owns that tiny sliver. And then the other almost half owns basically the whole pie. And the majority of that pie is specifically the top 20%. So that to me is, I think, the most shocking, that the same disparities that we see among the world, we also see within the U.S. Although, if you think about the U.S., even our poorest, that sliver right here, if we put them in line with the rest of the world, they would actually be on the either the comfortable or above category, because the United States as a nation, as a whole, is one of the richest countries, and so our poor are still much better off than a lot of other countries, even majority of their population. All right, so all of this, as you can see, we have limited resources, which is scarcity. It's the problem of having unlimited wants but limited resources. That forces us to make choices, to make decisions. We can't get everything that we want, so we have to choose, how am I going to spend my time? How am I going to spend my resources, my assets, in order to get the most that I can? Remember, rational and self-interested. So I want to do things logically that are going to maximize my utility, because I know I can't do everything. I don't have the resources, and I can't get everything that I want. So the one thing scarcity forces us to do is make decisions about how to use our limited resources to prioritize our unlimited wants. So let's see. Let's take this for a moment as if this is a slice of pizza. How can you maximize your utility? Well, if you're extremely hungry, you maximize your utility by eating all of the different slices, right? But let's say now that there are 8 of you. How are you going to maximize the utility of all 8 people? Well, you could give the whole pizza to one person. That'll probably maximize that person's utility, but it would make the other 7 people not get anything. Another thing you could do is equally divide it. Everybody would get some benefit. They wouldn't get the whole benefit, but it would be an equal benefit to everybody. Other options include making the pizza bigger. So even though we all get the same amount, now we are all happier. because we all have more. So think about that with the economy, with the world, with our resources. One way we can try to address scarcity, the limited resources, is by creating more than we have, being more productive than possible, than is currently possible. We're going to explore that further in Unit 2, which is on production. Remember, Unit 1 is consumption, so we're thinking about things as the user of the resources. In the next unit, we're going to think about the producer and how we can actually make the pie bigger. But for today, we're going to look at the pie and pretend that we can't make it bigger. We're consumers, so we're not making stuff, we're using stuff. So given the pie as it is, how can I, just me, maximize my utility? Well, that would mean that I try to get as much of the pie as possible. That's going to be at the expense of somebody else, but we're talking about being self-interested here. So for this example, if I can get more of the pie, that makes me happier. So when you're making single decisions as a consumer, you're trying to figure out how can I increase the amount of resources that I have. So as consumers, one strategy to maximize our well-being is to optimize our decision making. Basically, to try to make the best decisions possible. That's what that word optimize means, to the best extent. Some things you need to know about decisions. Every decision has a cost and a benefit. They may not always be clear to you, but these are two components of decision that you need to know. So when I'm choosing to spend my time right now, the cost is my time. I'm giving up these 20 minutes in order to provide you all with a lesson that you can reference. What's the benefit? The benefit that I get out of this is if you have questions for me about the lesson, I can send you to the video first. So that saves me time in the future. So it's a benefit of future gain. It also provides a benefit to you, and as your teacher, your benefit directly relates to me, and it's going to mean an additional resource for your success in this class. So I both identified the cost and the benefit. Go ahead and take a moment to think of a decision that you've made today. Remember, you make decisions every day because you have unlimited wants and limited resources, so you need to decide how you're going to use them. So think of a decision that you made today. Go ahead, get it in your head. And now I want you to figure out what was the cost of that decision and what was the benefit. Remember, the cost is what you gave up. A lot of times you can think of the cost as like the downside, and the benefit as the good side. So a lot of times the cost is people's time. You're giving up time that could be used doing something else. But sometimes the cost is also monetary. Maybe your decision was to go buy lunch. So another cost besides your time would be the money that you had to spend on that lunch. Sometimes your cost could be your patience. It could be your, I already said patience. It could be your emotional well-being. Maybe you have to do something that really makes you mad, and you know that doing it makes you mad, but you have to do it. There's a benefit. There's a reason you're doing it. So the cost is that it puts you in a bad mood. That's something that you're giving up. You're giving up your emotional well-being in order to do it. And then the benefit. So what's the reason you did that then? It put you in a bad mood. There must have been a benefit. So maybe it's working out. You chose to work out. You gave up your time. You paid money for the gym membership. Going to the gym doesn't make you excited, so now you're kind of grumpy. But the benefit is all of a sudden you're going to feel better afterwards. The high you get from endorphins. Another benefit would be the fact that you are becoming stronger. The fact that you find yourself sexier or whatever it is. So there are benefits as well. You need to be able to identify both the cost, what you give up, and the benefit, what you gain. Okay, so we just said every decision has a cost, has a benefit. Something else that all decisions have is called a trade-off. Trade-offs, and let me just tell you, let me just embolden myself here as I tell you. there is an infinite number of trade-offs. There is not a single trade-off. There are infinite number of trade-offs. They're not all good trade-offs, but for every decision that you make, there is an unlimited amount of things that you could have done instead. That's what a trade-off is. It's all the things that you could have done with your time. So let me rattle off some trade-offs for my time right now. I could have been watching Empire on Hulu, which is what I was doing right before this. I could have made myself lunch. I could have been texting my friends who are texting me in the corner that you probably see. I could have called up my mom to see how she's doing. You see, there's a limitless number of things that I could have done. Those are trade-offs. So now think about the decision that you chose earlier. You identified the cost, you identified the benefits. Go ahead and think through what are some trade-offs, some other things that you could have done instead. I hope that as you came up with some trade-offs, you noticed that they're not all as appealing. They're not all equal. Like for me, watching Empire, that's a really good, I want to do that right now. I want to just curl up in bed and watch Empire. Texting my friends right now, not as interested in that. I can talk to them later. I don't know, I'm not feeling that right now. Those are both trade-offs, but they're not equally weighted. So that's another thing about trade-offs. They're not all equal. They're just things you could have done. Okay? We can also call them foregone alternatives because they're alternatives. They're things you could have done. But because you're choosing to do this, you can no longer do them. That means they're foregone. You can't do them. That's what foregone means. It means something that you gave up. It was an alternative that you gave up because you decided to do something else. So every decision has a cost, a benefit. Every decision has limitless trade-offs. Let's look at an example. What is the cost? What is the benefit? What is the trade-off for this example? Mr. Smith pays $15 to watch Black Panther at the movies on a Friday night. What's my cost? Answer is $15 plus my time. What's a benefit? I get to enjoy an amazing movie. What's a trade-off? I could have gone skating. That's a trade-off. I could have stayed at home. That's a trade-off. Way cool. Okay, now the next concept that you need to know. Opportunity cost. This is another element of decisions. So we know decisions have costs, benefits, trade-offs. Another thing that all decisions have is an opportunity cost. The opportunity cost to a decision is the highest of your foregone alternatives. So out of all of those trade-offs, the things that you could have done, one of them is going to be the most appealing alternative. That is your opportunity cost. So it's not all of the trade-offs, it's just the highest trade-off. So for me right now, I am choosing to record this video. That's my choice. The trade-offs include watching Empire, sleeping, calling my mom, eating food, blah, 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 blah. But the highest of those, the ones that is most appealing to me right now, would be watching Empire. So that choice, or that option rather, is my opportunity cost because it is the highest of my foregone alternatives. Go ahead and think back to the decision that you were analyzing earlier. You talked about its costs, you talked about its benefits, you identified some of its trade-offs. Which of those trade-offs would be your opportunity cost? Now, I hope that the one that you chose was your highest, was the most appealing, because that's the definition of opportunity cost. It's the highest of your foregone alternatives. Now, I want to distinguish here, it is not your choice. Your choice is the ultimate thing that you decide to do with your time, so that is the highest thing, period. But it's the highest of your foregone alternatives, of the things you didn't choose to do. All right, so let's look at this example. Gwendale goes to football practice after school. That was his choice. What's the cost of his choice? I hope you said his time. That's one thing that he gave up. Maybe he had to pay for the sneakers. Another cost is maybe if he gets hurt. So the risk that he takes on for playing football, those are all costs. They're things that he gives up. What are the benefits of him choosing to play football? Perhaps you said that it gives him joy. He enjoys the camaraderie with others, the competition that he is engaged in. He must enjoy the sport, so the joy of the sport is a benefit. What is some trade-offs? Yeah, you could have rattled off the whole bunch, right? Maybe he stayed with Mr. Smith after school to make up some work. Maybe he went straight home to hang out with his friends to study. You know, tons of trade-offs. And only Gwen Dale would be able to identify his opportunity cost because only Gwen Dale could say of those trade-offs which one is the highest. All right, now to the strategy. So as I told you all, in this lesson, do you remember the title? The title of today's lesson? It's Unit 1, it's on consumption, and it's about making a single decision. Scarcity forces us to make decisions, and we want to maximize those decisions, to maximize our utility. So we start by learning a strategy that you can use to optimize a single decision. And that strategy is called cost-benefit analysis. So this is a strategy that you can use to make a decision, and you should only make a decision. You should only say, yes, I'm going to do that with my time if the benefit of the decision is greater than the cost. That's cost-benefit analysis. In one word, or in one image, rather. Cost-benefit analysis says I'm going to look at an option that I have, and I'm going to ask, what are the benefits? What are the costs? Which one's greater, the benefits or the costs? The good stuff or the bad stuff? And if the good stuff outweighs the bad, I'm going to do that because that is a net positive for me. If the bad stuff outweighs the good, I'm not going to do that because I'm actually going to be worse off if I make that decision. So let's look at some examples and let's use cost-benefit analysis to see whether or not the person should make the choice. Shantiria has not studied for a test. She's considering staying up all night to cram. What would be the benefit if she decides to stay up all night and cram? Perhaps you said she would know more information than if she hadn't done it at all. Perhaps you said that she would feel more less anxious. She would feel more ready for the test. What are the costs? Perhaps you said she loses sleep, which means she may not be as alert when she's taking the test. Perhaps you said that she won't be able to learn the material very effectively because it's late at night. So battling her tiredness would be a cost. So use cost-benefit analysis. In order for Shantiria to decide that she's going to stay up, what needs to be greater? I hope you said the benefits need to be greater because that is the correct answer. With cost-benefit analysis, you want the benefits to be greater than the cost. So everybody's different. Everybody has different benefits and different costs. Remember, different tastes and preferences. That's one of our fundamental assumptions. So everybody's different. And because everybody's different, only Shantiria can say whether the costs were greater, in which case she wouldn't do it, or whether the benefits were greater and she'll do it. But that's how it works. Okay. So your assignment for today is to go around Carver High School and to get metacognitive. Start getting like a bird's eye view about your own life. And I want you thinking about how you make decisions every day. You make decisions at Carver High School every day. So you are going to, where is it? Okay. You're going to take this classwork, cost benefit analysis at Carver High. You're going to write down a decision scenario, a potential decision. So it could be, should I study for the test? But do it at Carver. So should I use the 5-minute passing period to get to my class early? That's a decision scenario. Fill in the costs. If you decide to do that, what are the downsides? What are you giving up because you decided to go to class on time? Fill in the benefits. What are the good things that happen because you decided to go to class on time? What are the trade-offs? What are some other things you could do with that 5-minute transition period instead of going to class on time? And then opportunity cost. Of those trade-offs, which one is the highest? Which one sounds the most appealing? Instead of going to class on time, I really think this sounds good. That's your opportunity cost. So parse out your decision scenario into those different pieces and then use cost-benefit analysis. Tell me, you know what? Going to class on time, the benefits are greater than the costs. Once I've parsed it out, once I've actually seen, yeah, these benefits like being on the teacher's good side, not being confused because I actually know what's going on, having enough time to set up my desk and to get ready to learn, those are all better than the costs. So yes, I am going to make this decision. Or you could say, you know what, the costs are actually greater, so I'm not going to be at school on time. And you need to tell me why. Why? Explain your decision using cost-benefit analysis, weighing the benefits and the costs. So that is your classwork assignment that you need to make sure you turn in. And let's do a quick review of our concepts. So, what is consumption? I hope you said it's the taking in of resources, the using up of resources. This is from last time. What's a shortage? I hope you said it's a temporary situation where you don't have enough of something. So maybe I need 3 coasters. These are my Mizzou coasters since I went to the University of Missouri. Go Tigers. Maybe I need 3 coasters because I have 2 friends who are going to join me for lunch and we all need a coaster to put our drinks on, but I only have 2. So that is a shortage. I have 1 less than I need. It's a temporary situation that can be resolved if I buy another coaster. So boom, the shortage is taken care of. So that's a shortage, temporary situation. What are the elements of decisions? We learned 4 of them. This is today. 4 elements of a decision. Go ahead, list them. Yeah, you should have said cost, the benefit, the trade-offs, and the opportunity cost. How how are trade-offs different, or how are they related to opportunity cost? I never said this explicitly, but you should be able to think through that. So go ahead. How is the opportunity cost related to trade-offs? Try that one out. So the correct answer is that an opportunity cost is a special type of trade-off. So it's not like they're different in the sense that they're like completely separate. It's actually like you have all of these trade-offs and your opportunity cost is the highest of them. So the way that they're related is that the opportunity cost is a special type of trade-off. More specifically, it is your best trade-off. That's how they're related. And then what is the rule for cost-benefit analysis? When making a single decision, when should you decide, yes, I'm going to do that? Well, according to cost-benefit analysis, you should decide, yes, I'm going to do that if the benefit is greater than the cost. If the good is greater than the bad. All right, you all. That is Unit 1, Lesson 3. Once you finish through that review, you can take your exit ticket with me. If you have questions, email me, text me on Remind, or catch me in class. Talk to you soon.